Iran is launching attacks while their country collapses because of trucks. Meanwhile, to another alert, at least 3 cargo ships have been reported being hit by Iranian gunfires in those small little fast boats in the Strait of Hormuz, and it happened this morning. Meanwhile, President Trump has extended his ceasefire deadline, citing a fractured regime. There was supposed to be a ceasefire getting these. No one knows who's in charge. 3 separate ships attacked in the Strait of Hormuz this morning. The 3rd cargo ship, the most recent, reportedly has been attacked while attempting to transit the strait. It may have a Panama flag on it. And earlier, the British military reported one of its ships was attacked as well. Confirmed attacker, but Iran is suspected here. The president has given us some recent updates, writing on truth. Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz opened immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day. Military and police complaining that they are not getting paid SOS. $500 million a day. Iran can't keep this up. Every day there's no deal. Things get worse for them. They can launch all the attacks they want in the strait. They're blocked in by the US Navy and they can't go anywhere. The president also writing, Iran doesn't want the Strait of Hormuz closed. They want it open so they can make $500 million a day, which is therefore what they are losing if it's closed. They only say they want it closed because I have it totally blocked. So they merely want their own. People approached me 4 days ago saying, Sir, Iran wants to open up the strait immediately. But if we do that, there can never be a deal with Iran unless we blow up the rest of their country. Their leaders included President Donald and France are hosting discussions with 30 other about plans to open the Strait of Hormuz. I did an interview with the head of the European Ship Association, and they say that some of these companies are losing millions of dollars a day. Then they should get their military over there and help out. Very pressed to get that strait open. It's amazing what's happening right now because when we're victims of our own success, they now have a rivalry playing out in real time in front of us between the political wing of the party, evil, but the real evil of military first, the IRGC. They're battling with each other in order to get a unified mission. And that's why there's an extra few days on the ceasefire. We got part of the regime that wants to have peace talks, wants to deal, wants to live normally. And then we got the other guys who think that if they can just launch a few more attacks, the narrative will become that they have survived and they will maintain their power. These people don't want to give up being at the top of a radical dictatorship. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it is back on the attack in the Strait of Hormuz, facing a blockade from the Americans. They have attacked 3 cargo ships this morning, even as President Trump has extended the ceasefire indefinitely. Let's take a look at where the attacks are in the Strait of Hormuz. 2 of them close to the Iranian coast, the other closer to Oman. The ship's captains say they were attacked by Iranian gunboats. This is what they look like. Revolutionary been showing them off in video released just weeks before the war. They are seen as a speedy, fast weapon, hard to stop, that the Iranians had been using and the US military had been attempting to sink in the wake of the war itself. This is all they got left are these little speedboats. And the only attacks they're able to pull off are really close to their own coastline. And remember, their navy is locked in. This area is sealed by the US Navy. Iran, they can launch all the attacks they want in this little area. They cannot get out. Their economy is collapsing. Every day they wait to make a deal. They lose all this money. They're not even able to pay their military. It's not going to be long. And Trump may not even have to fire another shot. Well, the president was tweeting about this on Truth Social, talking about how much money they're losing. They're losing $500 million with the strait being closed. This is the real, we want to dismantle the nuclear program in Iran until they give us that enriched uranium and agree to dismantle. Then we'll continue to keep that strait closed and they will continue to lose money and we will bleed them dry and we'll continue that economic pressure. But Lawrence, the problem is as Brian was mentioning with the negotiations, Iran can't communicate, first of all. So they have to go back and forth and try to find their supreme leader without being caught and without being traced. Yeah, the senior leader is nowhere to be seen. Number 3, there's that power struggle between the Iranian parliament speaker Ghalibaf and the IRG. He wants diplomacy and negotiations mixed with military strength, and apparently the IRCG is opposed to talks complete with Lawrence. They want to go down with the ship. Yeah. So the regime is in total chaos. They have no leadership right now. No one is really in control. It looks like the supreme leader is still wounded, battered. They can't communicate by cell phones because now after the initial strikes in Operation Epic Fury, the situation we're looking at today, with there being zero leadership began. And what happened? Remember, they started launching their ballistic missiles at Saudi Arabia and at the UAE. They started attacking all these countries that are nearby. That's because the leadership was so fractured from the very beginning that you had people in a bunker with a bunch of missiles calling HQ to figure out what to do. And the line is dead, so people have been making their own decisions on their side of the aisle for a long time. And now those decisions are happening so sporadically that they can't get a negotiating team together. And while that happens, the money is just drying up. This whole thing is in its end stages. Part 2. They're pretty much down to carrier pigeons. They can't use boats. They can't use drones to communicate. And so what you have now is that the people with the guns now are controlling the operation. Now, the president wants to have this debate and allow them to get their act together. It looks like the Pakistanians are trying to convince the political leadership as well as the military leadership to get on the same page. But at some point, the president is going to lose his patience, and I think we're going to be right back to the battlefield. Guys, how inappropriate was Senator Chris Murphy yesterday? First off, you know about his comments in Barcelona when he went off the map addressing a bunch of socialists, ripping our country, saying we're run by a dictator, Governor Waltz, even more embarrassing really to himself, he just doesn't realize it. Ripping our country, saying the most horrific things, saying our president basically has lost his mind. You know, the people that say that Trump has no plan, that Trump doesn't know what he's doing, these people all want to see the regime survive. They would be very upset if the fact that these criminals who run that country lose so much money that poverty brings them to the negotiating table and gets them ready to make a deal that benefits their own country. They would be very upset about that. And they would also be very upset if Trump went in and ended this thing decisively. They would hate that too, because that would prove that Iran never stood a chance in this conflict and should have surrendered and stopped attacking their own people and subjugating them like they have for the last 47 years. And while all of this infighting goes on, this regime, instead of them holding the world economy hostage, they're holding themselves hostage. Fox News alert, bridge and power plant day could now be any day of the week. A fierce power struggle breaking out in Iran and President Trump showing a lot of patience. 47 says U.S. airstrikes have seriously fractured the regime. So Pakistan asked us to hold off on BNP Day until Iran can get it together. Trump can wait as long as coup. No one knows who's calling the shots. Vance, Wickoff, and Kushner were supposed to leave for Islamabad, but they never took off because the Iranian delegation never took off yet. Which is suspicious because this morning Trump said the guy authorized the deal. They just got the okay to go forward, which I knew they were going to do anyway. I mean, I don't think they had a choice. They have to negotiate. And you know, the one thing I'll say is this. Iran can get themselves on a very good footing if they make a deal. They can make themselves into a strong nation again, a wonderful nation again with incredible people, but they seem to be, you know, bloodthirsty. Yeah. Told his ministers wheels up, but the military said not so fast. The whole reason the Ayatollah was promoted at a secret ceremony, well, it wasn't really a secret, but they had his cardboard statue out there and everybody was cheering for him. That was not a unified event. Those were people within Iran who wanted to make it look like the status quo was still in charge so that this one faction could maintain its grasp on power before it slipped away, which it now has. We're basically looking at another Iranian hostage crisis. This time, they've taken themselves hostage and therefore the negotiations. The IRGC won't agree to sign over the Strait and the uranium, and they're the only votes that matter because they're the ones with the guns. The generals are demanding Trump lift the blockade as a precondition for more peace talks. Iran sees this as a game of endurance. They believe that time is on their side and that ultimately the domestic pressure when it comes to energy markets and the stock market will force President Trump to make a deal that's in their favor. That is not the truth. That is not the reality. The president, his counterparts in Israel, have the ability to continue this operation for months if they need to. It's the Iranians up against the clock. The blockades already cost them over $1 billion. Checks are bouncing and their economies in a death spiral. And how long do you think these soldiers are going to keep showing up for work in their bunkers when the phones don't work and when the checks don't go through? And while many of them have family and friends that are out in the streets protesting against their own government, Scott Besant says, quote, "In a matter of days, Karg Island storage will be full and the fragile Iranian oil wells will be shut in. That's a bad thing. The blockades turned around 28 ships sailing to or from Iranian port, most of them oil tankers. And we took custody of a runner sailing in from China with missile ingredients. We caught a ship yesterday that had some things on it which wasn't very nice. A gift from China, perhaps. I don't know. But I was a little surprised because I have a very good relationship and I thought I had an understanding with President Xi. But that's all right. That's the way war goes, right?" Here's the thing you got to understand about the oil storage that was mentioned quickly here, but this is pivotal. They've got this machinery. It's running 24 hours a day. It's getting oil out of the ground. That oil's got to go somewhere, and they're going to fill up all their storage tanks. And once those are full, and they got nowhere to put the oil that's coming up, they have to shut down their entire economy. And when they do that, a couple of things are going to happen. The first thing that's going to happen is once you shut that equipment down, it is very hard to restart these oil production extraction facilities. And once they shut them down, what are all the workers going to do? They're all going to have to go home. They're going to have nothing to do except protest in the streets and try to buy food with money they can't earn. This is going to lead to a massive internal collapse over there. And this regime is going to have to come to the negotiating table quickly if they want to stave off a full-on rebellion. On top of that, nobody's going to believe any of their propaganda. How are you going to believe propaganda that your country is winning when the oil has nowhere to go and nobody can go to work because there's no work to do? How are you winning? The lies are going to be totally exposed as well. They can parade all the missiles they want through the street. Nobody's going to care.